All right, guys. So this presentation is called Keeping Your Emotions Together. In other words, managing your emotional health. And I've put this presentation in this course because I think as one of the best abilities or skills you can develop as a man or becoming the best version of yourself is how to manage your emotions. And so society in general, looks to men as people who can take control their emotions, manage their emotions, and get society through tough times. And even internally, if you internally reflect, that makes you a better person because you're better able to handle your day to day, especially if you're a leader. And so learning how to do this, you're going to, one, feel better about yourself, and two, it's going to just make you a better man. Because there are going to be tough times in all aspects of our life, from little to small things and events. And if you're the one who's breaking down and crying about the little stuff, or getting anxious or shaky, or you're too easily angered or frustrated, you become less effective in a way as a man. And when you learn how to manage your emotions and you get better and better at it, there's almost no situation or circumstance that's going to phase you too much, and you'll be able to overcome a lot more and achieve a lot more. So let's get into it. Without further ado, let's get into it. All right. So what you're going to learn here, you're going to learn about a whole spectrum of emotions. You're going to learn about emotional intelligence, what that means. You're going to learn why not being emotional doesn't really make sense and what to do instead. So a lot of times people say, "Oh man, if you're a man, you're not supposed to feel anything. You're supposed to be tough." Or da, da, da. Well, that's not exactly true, and it's not exactly the healthiest way to look at your emotions. It's more so how you manage them and deal with them, process them, and then keep moving. Through whatever you're trying to accomplish. You're gonna learn about developing a masculine frame and how emotions tie back into mental health and other things. All right. So there's all kinds of emotions. And these are some basic emotions, and these are based on like reactions to things in life. So if we look at basic emotions, we're talking about happiness, sadness, surprise, anger, fear, and disgust. Right? Those are some very basic emotions. And this is a emotional spectrum. I believe it's called the Plutchik uh, emotional uh, emotional spectrum. And so it creates this balanced kind of wheel of emotions that we go through, and how to balance them, and how the levels of severity of the emotions. But basically understand, and they have, way more advanced emotional wheels. They have like maybe 100 different emotions. You can look them up on Google. But you just understand that feeling these things is normal. Okay, we all are going to feel these things throughout our life. Um, and it's how we navigate them that is really the key. So, just a little forward, I used to struggle with my emotions as a man because most people and adults told me growing up that being emotional just isn't for men. But then I would feel emotions, especially if I was a young adult or like a teenager or something. I was like, man. So, I'd be going through this stuff. I'm like, I feel them. And so I would get like, feel guilty or, mad at myself for having them. But I was trapped between what society was telling me about a man and emotions and my own reality. If you go through a breakup, it's gonna make you sad. If someone disses you in front of your friends, that's gonna make you mad. That's normal, okay. But I was just told like, no, you're not even supposed to feel that. You're just supposed to ignore all that and just keep moving. And so I would have these sleepless nights. I'd have rage fits, taking out my problems on other people. That's called projecting. Being insecure about my own life because of unresolved emotions. I was just tucking them under the rug. And that's really not the healthy way to do it. But so many men get trapped in that behavior. And I had to learn how to manage emotions. And a few people, started telling me, you know, you can have emotions. It's how you navigate them, manage them, process them, think through them, and then keep it moving. Because our emotions tell us about our environment, right? Or about the situations we're in and whether we should or shouldn't be in them, right? So it's about how to manage them rather than hide them. Okay. So let me just break down why keeping it to yourself doesn't really make sense. Okay. So if you look from a medical standpoint, your emotional brain literally reacts before your prefrontal cortex is like, hold up. So you feel emotions before you're consciously aware of them in many cases. So that's because, like, if someone's angry at you and you get a rock chucked at you, or they're looking threatening, you can set your emotions to get away from that immediate danger. So your brain is like, before you have time to logically process all these things going on, your subconscious brain is like, okay, I see this, this, and this. Angry face, red face. Guy's got vein popping out of his forehead. He's raising his fists. He's got something in his hand. Okay, your emotion is either fear or anger, and you're gonna fight back, or fight or flight. Your emotional brain jumps into action in like milliseconds. Okay, so yeah, your emotions are gonna be there, unless you got some kind of brain surgery or took out whatever it is in your brain that you know stops you from feeling them. So, or you take some, medication that just blocks your emotions out or whatever. And I'm not recommending you do that on your own. Okay. Most people, the question is, when emotions hit you, how are you going to handle them? Okay. So it's not like, oh, you can't feel them, because you're going to feel them. All right. That's normal. It's pretty much a subconscious process. We can consciously have emotions, but you get the idea. Sometimes it's just like, wow, I'm in this immediate situation. I feel a way. How do I deal with this? So emotional intelligence is basically the ability to recognize, understand, and manage your own emotions. And so the helpful male mentors I found explained to me that it's all right to feel emotions and express them also, but in a healthy way. So of course, I wanted to know how to do that. And so, like many things, the basics are simple to get down. And from there, it's like a skill. You get more solid in it, the more refined you get in managing your emotions. So you're going to feel different levels of severity of emotion. And you've really got to, again, recognize, you've got to understand the emotions. And this could take study, this could take practice, and manage your own emotions. How am I going to deal, create a game plan from X, Y, and Z when you feel angry, sad, disgusted, surprised, etc., etc., etc. You develop this throughout life, but you can consciously work on this as well if it's important to you. So, here are some common emotions that can scramble your signal. Let's dig into them. All right. So, anger and frustration. With this one, you got to really think before you act. You got to recognize right when it hits, I'm angry, I'm pissed off. And that's key. Then you got to learn, okay, well, what have I been doing, and what do I need to be doing, and how do I handle this in a healthy way? Because if you just lash out and you get angry, the police stop you and you feeling away and you have a hard day at work, you start cussing at the police, guess what? You might get arrested. Or you lash out at your partner because you're going through stressful times in your relationship or whatever. They might leave you. So with anger, you really have to stop, count to 10, take deep breaths, and think of plans of action. How am I going to deal with anger when it hits me? With sadness, people give men so much crap about being sad or depressed. Well, F them. And being sad is a regular response to sad shit. And so what you do here is you just talk yourself out about why you feel that way. And be careful who you confide in with this. Because, again, there's a stigma about men being sad and openly expressing that in some cultures. But if you find the right person, like a counselor or a real friend or a relative who can help you talk through it, that could be healthy for you, And accept that this is the shit. It's a slowing down process, and this is how we grieve. This is how we process like sad things. We're going through stuff. Our body naturally wants to slow down and understand why we feel that way and what to do next. So it's okay to be sad. With fear, this is another one that men get a bad rap for. Fear is a natural instinct. It tells us, well, hey, you in something that you're not supposed to be in, right? It tells us to be aware of our environment. And for this one, I like to go inside and immediately think, like, why am I afraid? Why am I in a situation where I feel uneasy? Because chances are, if you think through that, you're going to make a healthy and very conscious, safe choice that's going to get you out of whatever it is you're in before you get into it. So keep that in mind. All right. Now, when I look at emotions, I also look at the child me versus the adult me, because the way I handled things as a kid and not the way I handle things now. So, like I've been saying, emotional management is a journey, lifelong, and I still develop new skills to this day. And so, the child me is cussing out people when I'm pissed off, but the adult me is counting to 10 and cooling that shit off so I can handle it like a grown man. The child me is crying in front of people when personal stuff is going on. Adult me says, hey, take a deep breath, homie. Keep knowing that I'm compromised. Sit with yourself or go somewhere. Understand what you're going through. You don't have to cry in front of everybody. And say, hey, I have a village to lead, or, take a leadership role. I can't just be soft. So, does my emotional response really match the situation? So, take a moment to process here when you're very, very sad and think through that. Now, child me is afraid to keep making progress toward my purpose and goals. I don't have enough money. Oh, they won't like, the product that I, decide to sell or manufacture, or, you start a business. Oh, if I go to this new job, my employees won't work with me. Oh, I'm not going to ask that girl on a date. What could go wrong? Child me just says, oh, I'm going to avoid this situation. Adult me says, hey, I got to keep putting one foot in front of the other to get to my goals. Is this fear rational? Is this something that could really endanger me, or am I just holding myself back? And that could be the case. Either way, you have to look at the situation. But a lot of times we let irrational, childish fears keep us from fulfilling our potential. So how can I figure out why I have that fear to keep it moving in the right direction? Okay, sometimes it's just we're just being a little bit cowardly, lack of a better word. It is what it is. And we got to learn as men how to push through some of that fear. But again, if something's immediately dangerous, maybe that is telling us something. So just be aware. All right, compounded emotions. Now, something I learned through my journey of gaining emotional intelligence is multiple sources of some similar emotions can pile on top of each other. What I mean by that is, like for example, multiple sources of happiness can make us really, really happy, just like multiple causes of frustration may push us over the edge. Sure, you all have had good days where just everything seems like it's going right, and you so super happy, hooper happy, and you so silly, you make a dumb mistake, or you just carried away in your happiness and you forget to take care of your responsibilities or whatever. And on the other hand, I'm sure you've heard, the expression that when it rains, it pours. Some days it's just keep going through setbacks and your emotions get snowballed. They get worse and worse and worse and worse. You got to sit down and say, you know what? Life ain't this bad. I'm just having a losing streak. I'm going through, multiple setbacks, but it's all right. I'm going to keep pushing forward. I'm stronger than this. And so knowing this, when a strong enough emotion hits you, try to deal with it if it gets to be too much. Don't just keep holding that shit in unless you know why you're doing that. And so one thing I found to help regulate emotions is playing music can help me diffuse strong emotions. There's slow music, fast music, music to help with depression, music to when you're feeling lazy. There's all kinds of music that can help you. And, you can kind of play around with or discover what you like most. But sometimes music can just diffuse emotions. When you start seeing a few things going too wrong, you'd be like, maybe just sit back, listen to music, or maybe go on a walk, go on a jog, get some exercise, go to the weight room. And sometimes it just dissipates and you can reset yourself. But if you just keep letting these emotions build, you're not handling them, it could get pretty rough. And on the other hand, if you're too happy, sometimes come down a little bit and say, you know what? I do have to do some things. I got to take care of business. Enjoy yourself. I mean, when you're happy, that's something to be happy for. If you really, got a job promotion or got accepted to a college or whatever it is, yeah, feel happy. But, bring yourself to reality and say, I still have things I got to take care of. And that'll kind of help with compounded emotions in a certain way. Or if you're going through hard times, try to compound it by doing multiple little things that'll build on each other to make you happy. Start doing little happy things, and then you create a winning streak of happy things, and now you're back in the good swing of things. So it's interesting, but yeah, emotions can compound themselves and mix and match to create more complex emotions. So something else just to think about. Consequences of not managing your emotions well. All right. So, for one, it's going to be hard for you to get by your day to day. If you're not handling your emotions, it's hard to keep a routine and a schedule. I got a schedule. I get up, read, drink water, eat breakfast, shower, brush my teeth, do all this stuff. And I mean, and I don't know if it's in that particular order, but I have a schedule that I follow. And if my emotions are out of whack, I'll be skipping stuff or, rushing through stuff. And, so it can affect your day to day. It messes with your personal integrity. Harder to stick to your goals that you want to make for advancing your life. When you're going through an emotional rut or a breakup or frustrations at work, you can get in the way of yourself. If you like building a business or something, or, trying to hit a weight room regimen where you're going 4 times a week, 5 times a week, and you're all emotional and bent out of shape, you're going to slack on that, or you're going to cut corners, or you're going to skip days, and it's going to set you back, you know. And then when you don't keep promises to yourself, that's messing with your integrity. You're like, well, can I really do this? Do I trust myself? So, yeah. Um, and it can lead to broken down friendships and relationships. If you always flying off the handle, always sad and depressed, or you always anxious and stuff, people try to sometimes back away from that to protect their own emotional health and mental health. So think about that. If you're in a relationship, you emotional wreck, especially as a man. A lot of times your partner is gonna be like, oh, I gotta back up. You a little too unstable. Cannot to really trust. Can I really lean on you? Can I depend on you for support and stability, and to be that rock, be solid? Um, it can be harder for you to manage things at work. Work is work. And especially if you got a lot of responsibilities, you start in a management position, you a little higher up. You got to be cold. You got to be, able to come down and be level-headed, rational, and process your emotions in the ways we talked about. And lastly, you could waste a lot of time if you're just emotional and you just you just ride out your emotions all the time, and you never gain composure over them and keep moving. You know, you will waste a lot of opportunities. You won't be focused on the things you got to focus on to get to the next level sometimes. So, being rational, level headed, you're more aware, you're more focused on things that you could be doing, you got to do. You're more present in the moment of life. All right. So, things that help you deal with emotions, here's just a few things that can help you out. Therapy and counseling is excellent, especially if you have the money for it. They do have free services. Some places, some states, cities, they have online therapy. They had one called 7 Cups of Tea online, where you can, basically text people or instant message therapists. A lot of them are kind of amateur, but hey, it's a free service. But therapy and counseling is great if you can get access to it. Going outdoors, nature tends to make people feel better. Fresh air, sunshine, all that. Getting a little walk, a little exercise. Music, as I said, music can really help modify and modulate your emotions. Don't underestimate the power of music, Exercise, great for building up your, hormonal health, regulating your balance mentally and physically, can help your emotions out. Releases endorphins, and just it helps you get away from things for a second when you exercise sometimes. A lot of times. I like to exercise when I'm going through a lot. Family and friends, but just be careful which ones. If you know what I'm talking about, some people got some toxic ass relatives and friends who they might help you sometime, but other time they like, oh man, he tripping, da da da, or they'll give you bad advice or whatever. So just be careful. You'll find out which family and friends you can really confide in. But and then staying positive and blissful. That's really an internal state. And then spirituality is a great one. I want to put that on here. Staying positive and blissful. We really do have the power to create good thoughts and good emotions for ourselves internally. When we sit and meditate, that's another one. Meditation is a great one. So try to just create your own happiness. I know if you're depressed, it's very difficult, but the older I've gotten, the more I've learned how to get away from whatever immediate emotions I'm feeling, and learning how to create inner positivity and bliss, because it's accessible. Our brain is the most powerful organ we have. It's like a supercomputer. And if we decide we're going to set good emotions in ourselves and really consciously think about it and move our environment around and our behavior around to accomplish that, we can really create some great positive states in our mind. So a great book or resource that I found for myself was Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman. It's an excellent read, and he kind of navigates emotions from a medical perspective, um, with a lot of real life examples of people who've used emotional intelligence to become better in life, and studies that have been done on it. So great book. I really like this book. I learned a lot from it. So if you guys get a chance to read it, read it. So just a parting thought is be well and safe journeys. Um, this is a piece of street art here in Nashville, and it's a quote from Miles Davis, and he says, "Do not fear mistakes; there are none." Right. So if you get your emotions out of whack, or you're feeling down and out, or too angry, or whatever you're going through, just realize like these are all learning lessons, opportunities for learning and growth. So keep track of your emotional intelligence, learn about why you feel the ways you feel, and keep developing yourself every day to become that better version of yourself you want to be. All right, guys, I'll see you in the next lessons.